Hello everyone, Other Helmet Guy here, and for today's topic we will be talking about the Supergirl trailer that just came out and what my thoughts are about it. So let's get into it. Now for the tone of this movie, it seems to borrow a lot of elements from other films. It gives off a mixture of Guardians of the Galaxy and Logan, which honestly doesn't make it feel that interesting story-wise. It's not really doing anything unique, it just feels like it's borrowing from other superhero genres we've already seen before. Now the last Supergirl we had was the CW TV show version, and to be honest, sure the costume looked okay, but what they got wrong was the character development and personality. They made her very similar to Superman, timid, insecure, sensitive, which doesn't really fit the source material. It felt like they were trying to make her more relatable for a new audience, but in doing so they just overcrowded the show with side characters, which the CW is pretty well known for doing. On top of that, the show had way too many plot points that went nowhere and scripts that honestly didn't make a whole lot of sense. And let's not even get started on the character assassination, taking characters from the comics and completely changing who they are to the point where they're barely recognizable. It just felt like the show lost sight of what made Supergirl interesting in the first place. Now looking through the trailer, we can see that the story starts off with Supergirl coping with tragedy through drinking and partying, and trying to either forget or move past her past, which is something we see a lot in modern superhero films nowadays. It's becoming quite the trend. I also couldn't help but notice that most of the alien designs are very humanoid, and their clothing is just dark grayish-brown tones. Even the places they hang out in look very similar to what you'd find on Earth, which doesn't really make sense for a story that's supposed to be set across different worlds in space. If you're going to sell me on an alien universe, it should actually feel like one. Now this is the comic book that the movie is directly based on, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King. While they're using it as the main source material, some of it may not translate that well to the big screen. They'll probably retcon a few things and change certain elements to make it work as a film, but make no mistake, this comic is the foundation that the entire movie is built on. Now there are a few casting changes worth pointing out. First, Krypto. In the comics he's a Labrador, but he was recast as a different breed that looks a lot more like James Gunn's own dog, which is a bit of an odd personal choice. And then there's Ruthie Mary Knoll, the young companion character played by a younger actress. In the comic she's 14 years old, but they've made her even younger in the film, which seems like a deliberate decision to make the story more accessible and relatable for younger audiences, essentially giving Supergirl this protective role over a child, which softens the overall tone of the story. Now looking at the overall plot from what we've seen in the trailer, it feels like a bit of a mess honestly. You've got a revenge story, mixed in with rescuing Krypto, and on top of that an origin trauma story about Supergirl overcoming her past. That's just too much going on at once. Pick a lane. And then there's the main villain, Krem of the Yellow Hills. Now in Tom King's modern source material, Krem is portrayed as a human-looking character, and that's where this version is built from. However, in this film adaptation, they've taken that human appearance and just gone completely overboard with it. Too many piercings all over his face, too much going on visually. It feels overly designed to the point where it actually takes away from the character. Instead of making him look more menacing or interesting, it just looks cluttered. For the main villain of the entire film, that's a real missed opportunity. Now let's talk about Lobo. He looks okay and is fairly accurate to the comics. They did tone him down a little bit though. He hasn't got the bright red eyes, and his skin isn't as pale white as it should be, but other than that it's not too bad. My only real issue is with the actor Jason Momoa who plays him. He just feels like he's playing himself. At this point it's hard to tell the difference between his version of Aquaman and his version of Lobo. It feels like he plays the exact same role in every single movie he's in. The energy, the attitude, the delivery, it's all the same. For a character as wild and unique as Lobo, you'd hope the actor would bring something different to the table, but so far it just isn't there. Honestly, I get the feeling we're never going to get the version of Supergirl that a lot of fans actually want to see. The classic interpretation of the character draws from a mixture of her comic history, a story where she loses her home of Argo City, survives Brainiac's attack, and eventually makes her way to Earth. And because her escape pod was delayed, she arrives much older than Superman, who by that point is already fully grown. In that version, Superman has to guide her and help her adjust to Earth and human society. At first she struggles, she doesn't speak English well, She doesn't relate to humans or empathize with them, and she comes across as cold and a bit of a hothead. She's fierce, impulsive, and carries a huge amount of survivor's guilt from watching everything she ever knew get destroyed. But over time, as she adjusts to her new home, she grows into her own person and becomes her own hero, separate from Superman's shadow. That's the Supergirl story that feels genuinely compelling, and it's a shame we probably won't see that version on the big screen anytime soon. Anyway, that is my overall thoughts on the Supergirl trailer. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your opinions on this one. And as always, thanks for watching.